I'm a former visa officer, and I want to tell you about the number one reason why you might get refused a visa in 2023. Let's start with the less common refusals, and then at the end of this video, I'll talk about the most common. The reason why someone would get refused their visa this year. Well, the less common reasons are these things called ineligibilities. What is an ineligibility? These are clauses in the law that says that someone who has engaged in this act, or has this on their record, is ineligible to get a visa. There are a lot of specifics in there, but some of the main ones are committing misrepresentation fraud when trying to get a visa issued. Another one might be having overstayed in the US on a previous visit. Another one might be having committed a crime that rises above the threshold of committing a crime involving moral turpitude, all of which will result in a ban on being able to get a visa right. These are formal bans. When you get that refusal sheet, it will say this is the code under the Immigration and Nationalities Act. This is the code that makes you ineligible, and each of those is going to have a duration of time. Each of those is going to have different requirements for getting a waiver, if you are eligible for a waiver. So those are what are called ineligibilities. But what's more common than that, and by more common I mean 10 times 20 30 times more common then that, is going to be what's called 214B. 214B. That's also just a code from the law, but what that means is that every visa applicant in the visa officer's eyes is viewed as having immigrant intent. Immigrant intent is not allowed with a non-immigrant visa. There are a few exceptions, but for most people, if you're applying for a B1 B2, if you're applying for an F1, if you're buying for a J visa, you cannot be seen by the visa officer as intending to immigrate to the U.S. Now, here's the key: they start from assuming that you have that immigrant intent. You don't start off innocent until proven guilty. Like you would in the US legal system, they assume that you are guilty from the beginning. You don't even start off neutral. And then they decide whether to take it down to refusal or take it up to issuance. In theory, every single visa applicantee starts at refusal. That's the presumption that the visa officer should refuse you for immigrant intent, and then it is your responsibility. It's incumbent upon you to prove to the visa officer's satisfaction that you do indeed overcome the presumption of immigrant intent, and you do merit getting that visa issued. So how do you do that? Well, it's going to be different in everyone's case, but the first thing to know is, what is going to make that visa officer think that you are intending to immigrate? Then you're going to need to know how to defend against that if you've been refused your visa. Well, everyone's visa interview is different. As former visa officer, we've done so many of these that our experience has allowed us to unintuitively be able to know what happened during that interview. When you count what happened, what questions you were asked, how did you respond to those questions, and in almost every single case we know exactly what the problem was. When we hear you tell us that story, okay, come to us. Find out why you might have been refused. Come to us before your interview and find out how to avoid that refusal in the first place. We're going to help you get your visa issued foreign.